Hello, everybody. Welcome to Feel the News with Friends. Feel the News with Friends is a show where I, your host, Marcela Onyango, pick topics of news that have made me either sad, happy, or angry, and then I tell you about it. And then I invite some of my friends to tell you how they feel about the news. That's why we're not so lonely about the news because the news is always so sad. Thank you so much for joining. Today, our guests are my two very good friends, Juan Chico and Wagatwe. And then we also have the New York chapter of the Debt Collective joining us to talk about student loans and what the Biden administration is going to do or not do about it. But that's enough in terms of introduction. A couple of things is that if you have questions, please throw them in the chat, or if you have thoughts, throw them in the chat. And between each guest, I will read what you've written in the chat. So I hope you enjoy this show. This is going to be a fun one, or maybe sad. I don't know. Let's get into it. All right, let's start with the news that has made me sad this week. So, unless you live under a rock, you already know that Kyle Rittenhouse, the ghost of white supremacist present and future, was acquitted on all charges on his murder of two people in Kenosha. Also, if you live under a rock, can I please join you? Things are pretty hard up here. I'm kind of tired of it. But people who support Kyle Rittenhouse say that he was defending himself because we all know self defense is starting a fight. Anyway, this news makes me sad because self defense is only a term that the injustice system, see what I did there? Injustice system, has long decided only applies to white people, even when they're instigators. While Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted for practicing his rights to be a white supremacist, Marissa Alexander, a Black woman in Florida, was sentenced to prison for firing warning shots to scare off her abusive husband who had threatened her. Yes, warning shots. Honestly, I thought shooting a gun in the air was definitely one of Florida's pastimes, along with wrestling alligators, so that didn't make any type of sense to me. Nonetheless, Marissa was defending herself, but the state of Florida was like, nope, only people who have the only people who have the right to defend themselves are white men and COVID-19. Wearing a mask is a direct violation of COVID-19's right to live. Marissa was sentenced in 2012, way before COVID-19, but I'm imagining that that's what the judge would say now. So those are my feelings about that news. And so I'm going to bring up our very first guest of the show, Wagatwe, who's been on the show multiple times. She's a brilliant feminist, anti-rape activist. Met her on TikTok, and it was her birthday this week. So last week. So feel free to wish her happy birthday when we're talking about this. Hi, Wagatwe.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Oh, thanks for coming here. You were such a fun guest. I love have such a fun time with you, and I love asking you so many questions. All right,
Thank you.
Wagatwe.
I have fun.
It's a fun time. Wagatwe, before I get into your feelings about, self-defense only being a thing that white men are allowed to do, I want to kind of like give the audience an idea of what your politics are so they know whether they can trust them. So I have
hmm
come up with some questions to help the audience and I determine if your feelings about this news can be trusted. Okay.
All right,
So
let's
here are
try
the Don't be scared. They're
it.
not bad. They're
I'm
like
like
really
bracing
good.
myself. I'm like, oh boy.
Uh, and Gabby Jackson says happy birthday.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, Margato. Let us figure out what your political leaning is so we know whether we can trust you or not. First question. If you had to choose one of these people to be president, who would it be? Angela Bassett as Tina Turner, Angela Bassett as Black Panther's mom, Angela Bassett as Bernadine in Waiting to Exhale.
I would say, I mean, I feel like the African in me is like, go with Black Panther's mom, like
So
to
you
be president.
so you want a monarch to be the president of the country?
No, but I want an African. Like I don't I feel like I'm like if we're gonna have to deal like obviously I'd rather have no one be president, right?
Hmm.
But like at least like let's have some black nationalism, I guess, as the like least of all evils. But ultimately I'd like none of the above. No president.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I were to go with like either the presidents that we've had or Angela Bassett as Black Panther's mom, I would definitely pick that any day,
Yeah.
all the time. Also, she's hot. I mean, not saying
Yeah.
that, but I mean,
Wouldn't mind having her on money. Just
Yeah, or
saying. I
to
sound
look
like a
at.
beautiful
It's
person in my
fine. Let's.
pocket. Or
Hey,
even
we
like
should
a
not. Yeah. Okay.
even have
Money.
money. I know. That's a whole nother thing. Yes.
But money, having our own money would also be nice. It'd be a pretty good look for money. Yeah,
Or at least
upgrade in
having the
so many ways.
portraits, like just like hang one up in my room, just like not at a
Yeah,
nationalism, just like I just like beautiful black women.
exactly. You can actually like celebrate the beauty. Like it has nothing. We don't even care about the policies because they're all going to be bad
No.
because we already know they're going to be bad. But at least, okay,
Look what they've done to us.
destroyed everything that there is good inside of my soul. Okay. Next question for you. Do you watch Succession?
I do not.
Why not?
I see enough white people. I don't know. And like, I feel like the people who are really into it on Twitter are like white media people. And I'm like, if the white media Twitter likes it, like, I already see terrible white people existing. So why am I going to do that for entertainment? Like, you
That
know what
is
I mean?
I agree with you. And I watch Succession and I feel exactly the same way. I'm like, you know what they're trying to make it though? It feels like they're trying to make being like a bad white person a quirky thing. Like it's just like a personality trait and
Hmm.
it's not like a problem. It's like, oh, they're racist and it's just quirky, you know? But
It's
yeah,
family drama.
yeah, they're just, that's just how they are. But yeah, so I feel like we can trust your politics because A, you don't trust anything that white people try to get you to do. Good call.
Yes.
B, you don't think that we should have a president, and if there's gonna be a president, you think that they should at least be eye candy, which and a black
So feminist
nationalist.
of me.
So feminist objectifying women on this show. This is bad. We're gonna be canceled tomorrow. Um, okay. So I feel like we can trust your politics, and I think the viewers probably think that they can trust your politics too because they seem pretty good. So let's get into it. What are your thoughts on Kyle Rittenhouse being allowed to defend himself from a fight that he started and a black woman being sent to prison for shooting a gun in the air?
Yeah, I feel like it shows just what the system is meant to do, right? It's about upholding the status quo. So having a black woman, especially, right, and standing up against domestic violence, that's a big no-no because we're under the patriarchy, we're under white supremacy, we're under this also capitalist system that I think is also like really important to consider. And then we have a young white man who grew up in a system. He absorbed all the information that society has told him, right? Like he did what the systems told him to do ultimately. And so I think that is why he wasn't punished. That's the other side of the coin, right? Like white supremacy is also about allowing the violence that upholds it to be held unaccountable. I mean, people talk about critical race theory, right? But it started out as not just like, oh, it's history, it's diversity, right? It was literally a legal way of analyzing
Mm-hmm.
legal, analyzing laws, right? And seeing how racism, except classism, are upheld through the system. And so I feel like this is where it would come into play, where we're like, this is the system working as designed. Not even just when people are getting up in arms about the judge, but it's like even just beyond that in terms of like how it's interpreted, what's our social construct of what innocence even looks like, what does violence look like. I think those are all these things that kind of like came together, that made me very unsurprised that he was found not guilty.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you brought up the point. Is like at the end of the day, if you are defending like America, which is like white supremacy, the state is always going to side with you. And something else that's very interesting is that Marissa was protecting her body and her life. Kyle went over to protect property.
Right, which was like, I'm sorry, so you're saying the cops are incompetent?
Well, yeah, that part. And also, you're saying that a CVS is more important than my life. And I mean, I like CVS, but it ain't that great. Let's be real.
Right.
I mean, like, no one, but yeah, so it's like, yeah, that's like such a good point that you bring up. It's like, if you protect white supremacy, then the state is gonna side with you, as opposed to a black woman saying that my body is important and it's worth living, which the state doesn't think is the case. You'll be punished for that.
Mhm.
So it's like, it's not going to be too long until self-care for black women is illegal.
I mean, like if you think about it, right? A black woman is more useful to the state if she's imprisoned than out taking care of her Black children. White supremacist violent teenager is more useful to the system out there and inspiring other white supremacists than being in prison.
Yeah, I mean, and what's the name of that guy? I always don't want to remember his name. Gates, the one with the weird hair and like is a pedophile. He was like, I would love for him to intern with me. I think he's like a
Oh,
congressperson. I don't know what his
yeah,
name is.
Matt Gates. Yeah,
Yeah, that
right? Is
guy.
that
Oh,
him?
yeah, that's his hair. I don't know. I always just think his hair is like weird, like too much
His
gel.
face. Yeah.
It's like
He's
very
so
creepy.
reactionary. And that's the thing, right? Like they're just like always trying to get a rise out of people. Like, oh,
Hmm.
here's an internship, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'm so tired of their BS.
I just want to
Tired
get
of
more
it.
followers on Twitter. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically though, right? And like get more articles like, oh, I triggered the libs, blah blah blah. Like I just kind of wish liberals ignored them more. Cause like,
I do. And but you know,
right?
liberals are on another train. Like I don't know. They're very unfocused. I don't think it's and I think it's intentional.
Yeah, I mean, like, how are you still talking to the Lincoln Project? Like, how are you
Yeah,
still listening to them and taking them seriously at this point? I don't
yeah.
no comprendo. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Okay. Next question. Who do you think has more rights in the United States of America? Black people or COVID-19?
Oh, absolutely COVID-19.
Why
Absolutely.
why do you say that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, they have basically open borders. They don't need a passport. They don't need documentation.
You're allowed to like freely spread. You can go whatever you want. And then no one's trying to get rid of it. No one's trying to kill it. It's like
They're like, it's fine.
COVID-19 is just roaming around killing people. Nobody wants to kill it. Yeah, it definitely has more rights than black people.
They allow it to reproduce unhindered.
Yeah, unhindered.
It definitely has more rights. I'm just saying, like the way that it's been allowed to flourish. How long have Black people been here? How long has COVID
We've not
19
been
been
allowed to
here?
flourish as much as COVID-19 has been allowed to flourish. Okay. COVID-19 is being allowed to spread. And then also, like, they're like, we're not going to vaccinate people in the global south. So they just like wanted to stay there. It does feel like
Right.
there's a lot of common, well, there's no, I mean, I wish that we had as many rights as COVID-19 does.
I would too, right? Like, how are we still taking off our shoes to go on planes, but we don't need to be tested? I mean, we don't need to be vaccinated to fly, right?
Yeah.
Like, COVID can go on a plane more easily than me.
Yeah, it can. It probably won't get searched and they won't touch its hair. So, all right.
Right?
Oh, to be COVID-19. Next question. All right. If you had to choose between wrestling an alligator and dealing with a criminal injustice system in this country, which one would you pick?
Oh, absolutely alligator.
Oh, you're willing to deal with the jaws of death instead of dealing
Oh
with a cop?
yeah. What's the difference? At least an alligator, there's a short period of time I can kind of prepare. But like the system, all those levels of abuse for how forever, and then the lifelong stigma that they place on you, so they can legally discriminate against you. At least like if I get something happens to me, I'd be like, oh, I wrestled an alligator. They're like, oh yeah, that's cool, poo poo, right? They're like, fist bump. But like if I'm like, oh, I was in jail, I was incarcerated, then they're like, oh, I'm gonna be even more of a jerk because stigma and
Yeah,
we're racist. Yeah.
you did something wrong. And I was just thinking with alligators also, it's like at least you can see it coming. I feel like with
You
racism, you never know where it's gonna come from. It's like you don't know where it's gonna
don't
hit
know
you,
what
or if it's gonna hit your
flavor.
work. It's yeah.
You don't know when it's gonna come. You don't know if it's gonna be full throttle. You don't know. Like there's just so many variables. At least with alligator, it's there. It's that.
Yeah, no,
I
I
can
definitely
train.
agree with you. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we talked a little bit about Kyle and self-defense. And does anybody have any questions for Ogatwe? Gabby Jackson said that the way COVID has more reproductive freedom.
No, but really though, literally,
COVID
where's
is
the
more,
pro-choice lobby? They need to jump on that
yeah,
rhetoric.
why is COVID just being allowed to just, do what it
Why is its
wants?
birth rate
Um,
allowed?
and A said, I love both of y'all's work. Thank you, A. Thank you,
Oh, thank
Gabby.
you.
Feel free to chime in a little bit more. Wagato is actually going to be right back in after another story, but we're gonna say bye for now. We'll bring you back momentarily. Okay,
Sounds
cool.
good. Bye.
Bye. Alrighty, so that's a piece of news that made me sad. Let's move on to the piece of news that made me angry. So we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse and the fact that, only white men are really allowed to, defend themselves, even if they're actually starting fights. And continue with the theme of injustice, the injustice system. Two men, Mohammed A. Aziz and Khalil Islam, were exonerated of the murder of Malcolm X. And honestly, what makes me the angriest about this news is obviously Black men were sentenced to prison. But what makes me even angrier is that a Netflix documentary is what triggered the New York district attorney to review this case when there was plenty of evidence that the two men were innocent, including one of the men who actually killed Malcolm X said multiple times that the two men were innocent. Okay, the fact that filmmakers are more interested in justice than the United States government is obviously very upsetting, but honestly, not really that surprising. Good filmmakers are interested in revealing the truth, while the United States government is interested in burying the truth because the truth kind of makes them look bad. Bad filmmakers, on the other hand, should not be trusted. And yes, I'm talking about Guy Ritchie and Quentin Tarantino. I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I stand by it. But specifically in this case, the truth was that J. Edgar Hoover withheld information about the presence of FBI informants in the ballroom where Malcolm X got shot. And also the fact that FBI informants were witnesses on the stand. So there were FBI informants in the ballroom, and there were FBI informants who were witnesses in the case. And the FBI withheld that information. And so did the NYPD in terms of they were undercover cops in the ballroom. So there was a lot of cops here. Malcolm X got shot. They only got one person that did it, and that person said the other two people didn't do it. And so we don't know who the other two people are. So, but I'm just saying there were a lot of cops there. We don't really know, but there were a lot of cops. So those are my feelings about this. I'm going to bring up next guest, Juan Chico, who's a stand-up comedian in New York, to help me talk about my feelings about this news. Thank you for joining us, Juan Chico.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is just something we probably would have talked about just in general anyway.
Yeah, for sure. But before we get into it, as I did with Bogatwe, I want to just ask you some questions to get an idea of what your political philosophy is, so that the audience can know whether they should trust you or not. Okay, so to figure out whether your politics can be trusted, so we can trust your feelings about the news, I have some questions for you. The first question is, who do you think would be a better president, Quentin Tarantino or Guy Ritchie?
I can't name one of Guy Ritchie's movies. I know he was married to Madonna. Politically, I'm not sure the meaning of that. Quentin Tarantino, how does he happen? Is my question. I have to go with neither. It's hard for me to believe he was born on Earth. He's just a different.
He's a different human. He's might not be human. Might not be from this planet, is what you're saying. Okay. I like your answer. I don't think you not trusting two white men who make movies that are subpar to be president. I feel like you can be trusted. So I don't know. Do you trust yourself is the question? Do you trust your feelings?
It goes from moment to moment, really.
I see that. I feel that. I'm like that too. I'm always am I right? Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, let's get into it.
On the internet, and 5 minutes later, you're oh, I was completely off base with the thing.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's happened so many times. I feel like I don't know anything. My education was a lie, so I'm just learning every day that I'm wrong about everything.
Oh, me too. Texas education, right there.
Oh, but it's education everywhere. It's all propaganda.
Oh yeah, no, everywhere for sure. One new
but
idea,
especially Texas.
But yeah, there's stuff. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. What are your thoughts on a Netflix documentary being the thing that sparked a review of the Malcolm X case?
I wish I would have watched the documentary, to be honest. I didn't, but I mean, cops are useless. I mean, I wish we had TikTok, so some of these TikTok kids could have been around then to solve it, or somebody with a podcast, because they're way more useful than anything. Cops can always come back and be my bad after somebody's dead. It's the easiest thing you can do. Yeah,
I do have a visual of like TikTokers like trying to like get into the case after it happened. And that would honestly be so funny and so disturbing because TikTokers have also really bad takes, but TikTokers do spend a lot more time researching than like cops do. So maybe you're onto something about that.
it blows my mind. Anybody on social media can literally they'll be like they'll Google the person's address and figure out the timeline.
I know cops can't figure out. Like, I will never forget when after the whole January 6th debacle happened, and they were like, "Can you please help us identify the people who invaded the Capitol?" And I was like, "What? It's on social media. Do you have like Twitter? Like, what's happening with y'all? Like, do y'all not know how your job works? Like, what is? That's how you know they don't solve anything or do anything because they actually don't. Like, and they never do."
They're like, can you identify these people we have the doors open for? If y'all know these people,
The
while
person who I high five.
if you notice them from around the corner at the corner store, you let us know. That is
Let
the
us know.
craziest. Like, there's no reward even. It's just like if you want to just be a good Samaritan for no money.
No, and also it's like you took selfies with these people. Isn't it on your phone?
They have no idea what that's about. It was just the rush of the moment, even though they knew it was going to happen.
Man, yeah, no, this is like really upsetting. Just like the fact that these people, obviously, they were black men, were in prison for so long, and then a Netflix documentary is what like got them out. That's who when Netflix, a corporation, is doing a little bit more public good than the government, it starts to get a little scary. But you know, the government and corporations are the same thing, so it's all right. Okay.
Even in Twitter, like you get somebody's story with some heat through Twitter, like they'll reopen something sometimes, which I'm just like, y'all probably didn't do anything to begin with. So
No, they didn't. They were just like playing Candy Crush and hanging out.
But
Which
even
is
if
like
they
my
were to
thing.
do something, they just go back to the person's mother and be like, "Hey, did this happen?" Like just the most basic. Do you know if you walk down the street on this day, like 20 years later?
Yeah, it's like, were they there? Were they here with you? Oh yeah. Oh, my bad. I guess
Yeah,
we can let them out. We can let them out now. They have an
even
alibi.
if
Oh
it's a
yeah.
possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Both guys had alibis too. And like legit alibis. The whole thing was just like horrid. So they're saying now that they don't know who killed Malcolm X. But who do you think killed Malcolm X? We know one person who did, but they don't know about who the other people are. Who do you think those other people are? Do you think it's the FBI, the NYPD, or Guy Ritchie? He makes bad movies. He's capable of anything. So
Guy Ritchie, he probably wasn't. He probably was a baby then. I mean, I don't think he's that. You can't be that strong at that age.
he could have had a time machine.
I don't know who did it. Just somebody connected, so probably a cop or but they have to be smart enough to like never be detected all these years. So who's smart enough to not be detected even as a question mark?
But the thing is, like, they don't have to be smart because they hide their own bullshit, right? So, I mean, J. Edgar Hoover is known to have said something needs to be done about Malcolm X. Like, he said that. So we know that.
Right.
I mean, that's motive, right? I mean, I have watched some TV and I know that a lot of that is lies, but that is motive, right? Like you saying that we should take care of the person.
Right. They even though they did talk a lot of mess back then, just to talk. J. Edgar Hoover was a weird one too, because he was something. He was like mixed with something. Like
a lot of hate and more hate.
Yeah, he definitely has black in his bloodline somewhere, I feel like.
Why? Don't say that. Don't put that on us.
I mean, I don't want to. It's always been like one of those like rumors, but I think it could be a possibility.
Oh,
it's always been a rumor. Like
okay.
One of the maybe that's what like built that fire there.
Ugh, gross. I don't like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you know, terrible human being, but
no, I'm gonna have to Google that later. That's awful. Well, I have one last question for you. Obviously, I want all prisons to be abolished, but until then, what do you think should be the consequences of the United States government imprisoning someone for a crime that they didn't commit? Also, crime is made up. These are all terms that don't mean anything. Crime is something that the government makes up. When black people commit crimes, white people are gray, so they don't commit crimes. But anyway, nonetheless, what do you think should happen if somebody is locked up supposedly for the wrong reasons? The prosecutor who prosecuted the person should go to prison for the same amount of time as the person who was wrongfully sent to prison. The person who was wrongfully imprisoned is the next president. No more presidential elections. So we'll just like keep making them president. Or the cops and the prosecutors who send someone to prison for nothing should make that person breakfast every morning. With pay, of course. Like, we don't condone enslavement of people. So what do you think? Like, if you were to pick, what would be your choice? What would be your decision?
Wow. I would have never thought of the prosecutor going to jail hypothetically. Can you give me the first option one more time?
The prosecutor who prosecuted the person should go to prison for the same amount of time that person was in prison for.
You know what? That really came out of left field, but I can't think of a consequence other than that would make them have to reevaluate how they treat these cases.
I mean, obviously, I'm not for carceral because I don't think prisons should exist, but it's just like one of those things.
If it was
hypothetical. I will say this. I'd like the idea of every wrongfully imprisoned person, even though wrongfully imprisoned is like redundant. Right. Nobody should be in prison. I think that they should be president.
Oh no, I'm for that one too. I mean, why not? Or whatever their state, take whoever's in the state lead out as well. That can be an option. Like they can all be like governors or senators or something immediately. Just some kind of actual position, even, you know, in their city or whatever, something.
Yeah, I feel like that'll be a lot better than these politicians running for office because at least they'll care.
Oh yeah, no, they don't care. They just want to add a title to their Twitter bio or something.
Oh, and Twitter. I feel like all politicians, all they do now is their Twitter fingers. That's all they do. They spend all their time.
They don't do anything. They don't do anything. But everybody else is lazy. They do not do anything.
They just tweet, "That is bad," and it's like, what are you going to do about it? We should end this. You're what are you talking about? What is wrong with you?
Something terrible happens. Go vote. Like, get in line or something like that.
They do that at the Kyle Rittenhouse. I was like, vote where? How? When? For what? And who? What are we doing?
The Rittenhouse verdict came out, and one of these like little senators or whoever, one of the people in government was just like, yeah, all right, let's go march in the streets and march to vote. And I'm just like, did you not just see what happened? Were you not just...
Also, what are we voting for exactly? Who? What? Like, are we voting for a new judge? Like, you don't even... I feel like that's just their solution to everything now. It's like, if you get upset about something, just like, go vote.
Yeah, it's just like they don't care. They don't even know vote for what, vote for who, vote for why. They don't... No plans to do anything, even?
No, they don't plan on doing anything.
There's not anything.
Yeah. So A in the comments said, Netflix confuses me because they post so much anti-capitalist expose style content while also being a giant capitalist corporation. Yeah, that's always really interesting. And I think what got her to be a good person to talk to this about also because she does a lot of work with like media literacy. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people just literally don't understand that these things are anti-capitalist. Like, I think people will watch Squid Game and instead of like concluding that this means that capitalism is bad, it's like creates a scarcity where we have to die to live. People are like, this is about like pink shirts, right? Like, I don't... And it's like this, like people just like they don't understand like what these things are about. They don't understand that it's like people will watch Hunger Games and not realize that this is saying that empire is bad. They'll be like, so America is like Katniss Everdeen, right? It's like, no, like they are the capital. Like people just don't. And I don't know
think
why.
It's also with some people, it's like, how can capitalism be bad when capitalism is featuring this amazing show on their platform? Like this capitalist system is featuring... Really? Like you don't like put it together. I mean, even 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have put that together. I'm just like, that's interesting. But also they're on Netflix, so I don't know what they're talking about, you know?
Exactly. So you're like, it's almost, maybe they're like trying to gaslight us. It's like, we wouldn't be showing you this unless... No, I just think that it's like a lot of people just like don't get stuff anymore. And I think that's why it's like these corporations don't even care about showing like things that are anti-capitalist, because at the end of the day, people have been so propagandized. They don't even know that it's anti-capitalist. It's like propaganda doesn't even work anymore.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness.
It's so funny because I was thinking even earlier today, I'm like, I don't think I watch movies or TV shows to think. like I'm not going in there like I just... maybe we're solving the murder mystery, but I'm not like going in there to think any deeper thoughts than that. Like I'm trying to figure out who killed the husband of this woman. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking deeper of like the systems that put that in place to make that happen. I think it depends on the person and what you think when you're going into a show or a movie or whatever.
No, yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Wanjiko. You'll be right back to talk about our high moments, but Let's move on to our next piece of news. Alrighty. This is our last piece of news before we bring on a special guest. And this, I like to end this with this news. This is news that made me happy. It's like a mixed bag, but let's talk about it. So, throughout the show and everything that I've said, we now know that the state, oh, we've always known that the state will send Black people to prison for nothing. Also, no one should be sent to prison for anything, as I've said before. Just like no one should be forced to listen to Nickelback. If you want to listen to Photograph, please put your headphones on. But this is not about me and my pettiness. This is about me being happy that a Black man, Julius Jones, was not murdered by the state of Oklahoma. I'm going to allow myself to feel that joy for a moment. Okay, moment over. The death penalty is still around though. And it's not surprising that whenever these cases come up, it's usually a Black person. That's because the death penalty is as racist as one would expect from anything that comes from the United States. The United States government can only produce racist systems, and Nickelback can only produce annoying music. This is just facts. So yes, let's be happy that Julius is free, but we must move forward to abolish the death penalty and prisons. And so we got a couple of comments. I'm gonna get to those when Wagatwe comes on, but let's bring Wagatwe back on. Hey Wagatwe, thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about a couple of things that have come up in the chat, but I'll do that a little bit later. But let's first talk about this news. So how do you feel about the whole Julius Jones predicament? You know, him being spared from the death penalty and then also like having to spend the rest of his life in prison. I think they said like no parole. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I'm really pissed, and it shows how it's just like another reminder as to why I'm an abolitionist, because the system really creates just like a no-win situation. Like it creates this like this place where we have like the bar is so low where we're like, oh my god, yeah, he's not gonna die, but like now he's gonna be in this really traumatic, racist, awful, violent system for the rest of his life, wrongfully. Like even if it wasn't wrongfully, I still think it's terrible, right? Because it's just sort of like, this doesn't make us safer. It doesn't make the world better. So it was like, I was like happy and like, yay. But then I thought about like all this energy, time, and money spent for this really like kind of shitty result still.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like a really shitty result. And in addition to that, again, as abolitionists, innocence doesn't matter. But also the fact that we know that the United States government constantly frames Black people for doing stuff. It's like they're gonna like set you up to go to prison and then they'll put you in prison. And then it's just like, yeah, I'm happy that he's not dead. But again, now he's gonna be in prison, which we know are awful and brutal and nobody should be in there. And also the death penalty is still around. So it's like,
it sucks, right? Yeah, it's just sort of like then we have to do the next one, right? Like that unjust system is still there, and I think that's the really hard part. And then sometimes I always also kind of sometimes wonder or worry about like when people are like, oh well, he's innocent, and then I feel like these campaigns can sometimes work to reinforce this idea of like only innocent people should be spared the brutality of the prison system, blah blah blah. But yeah, it sucks.
It makes you hot. I feel like life is like college but worse, in the sense of like, you know, you turn in a paper and then you're relieved and then you realize, oh my god, I have 6 more papers. It's like finals week multiplied by like 1,000,000.
Or like even midterms. I feel like midterms was worse for me because like not only did you have tests, you also had regular class on top of it.
Oh yeah.
I always struggled.
I struggle. Yeah, and I struggle. I'm struggling with this now just because I feel like it's like we can be happy for small things. And I like when Mariam Kaba is always like, it's good to fight for one person and it's good to like make sure that person gets justice. But it's like we need to do that and keep an eye on the big picture. And I'm just like, I'm so tired.
Right. It's exhausting.
Very exhausting.
That's why we have community though, right? Because we can't do it alone.
No, we can't. And that's another lie that they always say. It's like we need a leader to like lead us to the freedom land. No, baby. No, that is capitalist propaganda to get you not to do anything. What you need is thousands of people, which is what MLK, they never talk about that. He didn't do that by himself. He was a spokesperson who was held up by millions of people who did the work. So yes, remember, we can all do it. Okay. More questions. What's more likely to last longer? Nickelback's annoying music or the United States of white supremacy?
Ooh. Ooh. I would probably say the US, probably just because it has a longer track record.
You think so? You think
Than
so?
Nickelback's music. I feel like
You think with Spotify? I feel like Spotify is going to be around forever.
you think Spotify will outlast the I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel like these tech companies eventually will sunset. I don't know. I just got this feeling.
Yeah, it does feel like at some point they will sunset because it does feel like it's also just like not very sustainable, like the growth and the amount, like just like the way they're exploiting labor. People are gonna get tired of it.
Exactly.
Like it's
There's
really
growing
bad.
backlash. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. Like people are tired of begging for streams and stuff like that. Like Spotify doesn't pay as much as they should. I've also heard like working there is pretty like it can be pretty bad. Like there's discriminatory stuff. So yeah, I see resistance brewing. I see it.
Do you see some resistance brewing against, the settler of the United States of settlement?
What do you mean,
Settler?
like the colonizers?
Yeah, like this
The
country.
people running the place.
Yeah.
We need a little bit more of that. We need a little bit more of that. I feel like there's more backlash against Spotify than the US at the
Yeah.
moment.
You know what's insane? We used to pay $20 for newly released CDs, and now I can listen to free music for hours. It feels wrong. See, this is
Wow.
how capitalism gets us, right? They give you something that
Mhm.
is great and nice. You don't have to spend any money, but it's on somebody else's back. But you're not thinking about that because you're not that person. So that's how like they always get us.
Yep.
You're like, well, do you not like listening to the new Adele album for free and you don't have to pay $20 for it? Which we used to have to do. Because I remember that. I think we're the same age. So like, yeah.
Yeah, you had to listen to, we liked one song, but you paid $20 to
Yeah.
listen to that one good song on that
Yeah.
album.
And it was like the single was popping and then the rest of the album was trash and then you didn't know. And now they're like, you can get the whole album and it's free. Capitalism always gets us. They always like, and then they like pin us against
That's
each
how
other.
they get us. It's so messed up.
So you think that Nickelback's music will sunset before the United States of white
I
supremacy?
feel like it's not, I wouldn't call it cockroach level. You know, I believe that it will fade one day. I have hope. Okay. Sometimes I am an optimist.
Oh, I love that. I love that for you. Get me some of that spirit. I love that for you. I love it so much. Okay. Okay, another question. Would you rather live in the United States of America or a utopian, stateless, non-hierarchical communist society that for some reason just always has Nickelback playing in the background?
Then why can you put Utopia and Nickelback in the same sentence? You can't do that. That's not a utopia. Then that's not a
everything is
utopia.
good. Like you can there's there's no money, where there's no racism, there's no patriarchy, there's no
I mean, I'll have to
misogyny.
fucking deal with the Nickelback then, I guess. You
Yeah.
know what? Because you know what? My brain will evolve to block out Nickelback eventually.
Just like photograph playing in the background the whole time, even though you don't have to go to work.
And I'm just like, no, because I feel like humans will evolve to just like eventually ignore Nickelback. Because I remember,
Oh.
like, you know, when you're young, you have like I don't know if you have a younger sibling, maybe people watching can relate, but I feel like there was a time where I have a younger sister and her crying, I just learned how to block it out after a while. And people are like, oh, your sister. I'm like, huh? Oh, yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. So.
I was the younger sister doing the crying, so I did not have to block any crying because I was the culprit. I was the person crying.
You were the one being ignored. No, I'm kidding.
I was the one who like siblings were like, boop, boop, boop. Nope. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So, A said Squid. Okay. I want to go talk about the media literacy thing. Okay. So Squid Game almost made me delete Twitter. Somebody said this. I lost it when people started strategizing how to win the Squid Games. It's a sickness.
Oh God. Okay, so the Squid Game thing, like people are talking about how it's kind of weird. So it's actually not technically because like that's the nature of capitalism. So there's theorizing around how the nature of capitalism is that it always expands and always figures out a way to turn what could be revolutionary or radical into something that's profitable for them.
Yes. It's like a slime, it just like evolves.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. So like thinking about how like t-shirt slogans now, or even like posting feminist educational content on Instagram. I was like something I was tweeting about earlier about how like, yeah, it's good with more access, but also like we're catering to capitalist algorithms, right? And like how does that shape how we relay information and interact with each other in the public square? So that's sort of what I've been, because like how anti-capitalist can Squid Game be technically if it has created so much money for capitalists? Like literally that man has made more money for capitalists than any most human beings ever will, right? And he's making a second season. So then also, is it really that anti-capitalist?
Oh, that's such a good, solid point. Like I didn't think about it like that because like at first I was just like, obviously, like this is talking about how capitalism will literally lead us to like feed off of each other to like survive, which is what it does. But then the aspect is like they're using it to make money and then like also to sell a lot of merch. Oh yeah, that is such a good point. And the other thing that I was thinking about too is that capitalism has done this thing now where even people who are against capitalism, without even knowing, they're incentivized by being rewarded by capitalists, which is what you were saying.
Yes.
And it could be
Yes.
through algorithms, but I think it's also monetarily, right? Like there are these like you remember like the terrible show that they canceled, like things like that, where it's like social justice warrior, and it's like, oh, it's like,
Yes.
but the goal is to be incentivized by capitalism, which will force you to censor yourself without even knowing that you're censoring yourself because you know what you can say and what you can't say, right? You can say women should be equal, but you're not going to say, oh, it's actually because it's racial capitalism and white feminism is actually neoliberal and we should focus on black feminism because it's actually, no.
Right. Exactly. Right. Like it's a lot easier to be like women's empowerment versus like stop patriarchal oppression. Right.
Yeah. Because what are the consequences of that?
That's the stuff that in the patriarchal, and like we have to think about like who owns the media, right? Like Netflix is literally owned by a billionaire who hates school education boards also. So also thinking about how like what are we secret also like technically funding and like the expansion of capital and like how is this influencing narratives and stuff like that. And also I think it's a good example that like media alone does not radicalize people. We still need to have community. Still need to have the correct like political education and all that sort of stuff. Because some people are like, how are you not radicalized? I'm like, y'all, it's not that easy. You're gonna grow up in all this capitalist propaganda. And you really think like one thing or two things is gonna make them be like, oh, I understand. No, we got to do a little bit more work, y'all. I get it. I understand. I wish it was easy, but it's not.
It's really not, because I mean, if you think about it, since birth, you have been taught to serve capitalists, right? The education system, the purpose is to serve capitalists. When they say you took student loans out to go get a theater major, why did you do that? You're not supposed to go to school. You're supposed to go to school to make money. Like it's not, you're supposed to go to school to like make yourself better, to make your community better, to learn more. Hell, just like to learn. It's like you're supposed to go to school to be a laborer for rich people to make more money. That is like how do you get that out of our heads when that's how we've been incentivized? And we know that behavioral, therapy, like it's the thing, like you've been you've been conditioned and we've all been conditioned.
Exactly. Right. And so like capitalism does such a really good job of just like making us not believe any other options are available. And sometimes you need someone, right, to like introduce like, no, these are other ways of being, like other ways of existence are possible.
Yeah. And also because capitalism has removed like real education in terms of like actually learning our history, learning things that happened. They've removed that and they've only focused on like what it takes to make money. And so like if you don't know your history, you're not gonna know that you're being lied to, which is why I think the major fight also is like to not teach critical race theory. It's because like if you grew up as a kid and you learned everything, like I learned Christopher Columbus was a good guy. Like if you learned that this place was, I did. I don't know if that was a thing, but yeah.
No,
Um,
I think we didn't learn how bad he was. Yeah, no, you're right. He was explorer. Blah blah
he was
blah.
an explorer and he just wanted to find new places. Not that he was a genocidal maniac. Okay,
Right?
cool. No, I'm really happy like you were here for that question because I thought it was like I was like, oh yeah, I know somebody who would be.
Yeah, same.
Okay. And then Money is Stupid said, LOL, I think most people don't have a clear ideology. They just follow what's trendy.
A lot of people, I think. And I think that's why I'm like, we need to have political education off of just what people learn on social media or live streams. Because yeah, if you're only learning off of that stuff, folks need to learn how to engage with stuff like first sources, right? And
Mm-hmm.
learn from there.
And also just like learn that like you need to know who's paying for that news, right? So if a billionaire is paying
Mm-hmm.
for it, you probably should like read it with a little bit more analysis because Jeff Bezos is not gonna the Washington Post or the Jeff Bezos Post is not gonna say Jeff Bezos stole money from flex workers, like flex drivers, which he
Right.
did, like $6 million. They didn't say that, right? So it's like
Yeah.
can't really yeah, cool. All
Also,
right, one
like, oh yeah, I was just gonna say, also consider their business model. Like, if someone's subscription based and they need to garner outrage, right? Like, if they're trying to get more Patreon subs or something, that it's not always bad, obviously, because I have a Patreon. But like, some people can tell you're like, you're
I
trying
was
to get
about
more.
to say, don't drag us here. We're in
I
Patreon.
self-dragging, no.
Just dragging the both of us. Okay, no, but please continue.
No. Just like sort of like thinking about like people's different models, right? Because like some people sometimes think automatically the independent people are more trustworthy, but sometimes those people they try to garner outrage, controversy to drive that. So also consider that sort of source and those sort of incentives as well. Because capitalism might not be right up front and center there, but it can still influence how people move online.
Like their motives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like a ghost. It's always lingering and making us do stuff. It's like it's turned us into this little robots, like this evil little robots that do things that we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really sad.
It
Last
makes me sad too.
it makes me sad because sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Like, am I doing this because I want to, or is it because I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I'm also depressed, so let's not get me into that. Okay. All right. So Gabby Jackson did say, I just imagine how much less stressed and tired Black people will be after total abolition. Yeah, we'd be really less stressed out. Like, yeah, let's make that happen. Go tell all your white friends at home to give up whiteness. That is the only way we're going to get rid of all this shit. Oh, okay. So this is a really good question. Okay. A has a question, and then I'm gonna let them go because I have one guest and I don't want to keep them waiting. Question: what do you think is the best way to expand people's imaginations beyond capitalism? In my experience, if you make alternatives convenient or better, people will still stick to what's familiar.
I think it depends, right? Because like I think for me, I do a lot of my work around like specific things, right? Like I started out as an anti-rape activist. So I feel like it's really good for people to find sort of like their quote unquote niche or their area, right? And so like when you're able to dig and it resonates with a certain angle, I feel like you're able to do that digging to like sort of just like reach people and show how capitalism is fucking things up and how there are different alternatives. Like sometimes it's not always in a because I think sometimes people have the script like we talk about capitalism and people think we're having this script. But I think if folks like are having normal conversations about different injustices and are able to drop those little like seeds about like what different ways could be different options what people are doing, I find that usually helps people like change tide. Maybe eventually, maybe not, but that's what I've been trying to do. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's like really helpful. And I've also noticed a lot of times if you relate things like how things could be different based on people's circumstances, I think that also works sometimes. It's like if somebody's just having like a really miserable time and being like, this doesn't have to be like this. We could do things differently. Like one thing that I really, really like is like I think a lot of people are starting to embrace the gift economy more, where like they're like, oh, it's okay for me to just like swap things or give people things and I don't have to make money from it. And I feel little things like those, I don't think it's gonna be big and all of a sudden where people it's not gonna be like an extreme makeover where like you go in and then you come out hot. Like it's gonna be like a process. Like it's gonna be like I think people, as you said, just like tiny bit, little by little. But when you oh my god, there are two people here with doubles. And by the way, there were 3 Kenyans on this show. Can I just say that? I almost called you Wanjiko because Wanjiko was there. But Wagatwe, thank you so much for joining me. I will bring you back for our high moments. Alrighty, thank you, Wagatwe. Alrighty, that was the news, most of the news, but I'm also like really excited to actually have somebody from the Debt Collective today to come and talk to us. So the reason why I asked Debt Collective to come and talk to us today is because the Debt Collective, which is a debtors union, revealed that Joe Biden and his administration were lying about the existence of a memo that determined whether Joe Biden has the authority to forgive student loans. Joe Biden's administration was claiming that they were waiting on the memo, but turns out the memo was already here. Here to talk to me more about like the Debt Collective and just like debt in general is Winona, I believe the chapter president of the Debt Collective in New York City. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Winona's here. Thank you so much for joining, Winona.
Thank you for having me tonight.
It's great. Yeah, I'm happy that you're here.
I really love the conversation y'all were just having about imagining different and new futures, because that's what we're doing.
Exactly, which is like so amazing. So so let's just like get into it. I'm gonna ask you some questions. I guess first regarding the memo, and then we can like have just like more open-ended, like more information that you might want to share. And then if people have questions also, I'll bring them up. So when it comes to this memo, do you think that Joe Biden was taking tips from school children who hide their report cards from their parents, so their parents don't know they're failing art?
I think he wrote the book on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right. How do we keep things from the public? Isn't that what they do all the time? You know, it's crazy. With this memo, okay, so we know, and this has been settled for quite some time, and we had a policy, like a lawyer in the Debt Collective, Luke Kareem, who found this out through the help of folks at institutions and universities. The Higher Education Act of 1965, this act in 1965, Congress gave the executive branch the power to wipe out this sort of debt, federal student loan debt. So pretty much it's called the compromise and settlement, known as compromise and settlement. They are able to compromise, waive, or release any right, title, claim, lien, or demand, I'm reading from it, however acquired on any federal student loan. The Secretary of Education, Secretary Cardona, has the authority to do this, as does the president. They don't need permission from Congress or the Senate, nothing. Biden can literally just sign it away. That's like federal student loan debt, we're at $1.8 trillion, coming up on 1.9. 93% of that is federally held. That's a lot of debt written away.
That's, oh my God. I mean, I'm not good at math, but 93% sounds like that's most of it.
Most of it, right? Most of it. And this is the thing, you know, we haven't been, if you've had federal loans, right? So I have just over or just under $140,000 worth of federal loan debt, right? And I haven't been paying these past 18 months because we've had the federal loan moratorium, which is going to be ending at the end of January, which is frightening. As far as I noticed, we're still sending $2 billion a day to the Pentagon. Our institutions haven't crumbled into dust. Like, they don't need this money at all. We just had a new statistic came out that pre-pandemic, only 50% of borrowers were repaying. Only 50%.
So we're already not paying.
Already not paying. Already you had, coming up again onto the pandemic, you had every year 1 million new debtors defaulted on their loans. They don't expect us to pay this back. It's just a way to keep us down, period.
Yeah. So, which brings me to my next question. Who will work at the M&M store in Times Square when everyone's debt is forgiven?
Gosh, why do people travel across the country to go to the Times Square M&M store?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't understand. You know what I bet's in there? Actually, I know who's going to work there. Nickelback.
Oh yeah, because nobody's going to be listening to their terrible music anymore, so they're going to be forced to go work there. No, I mean, no, when you say that, like, they just want to control us, this is the government. This is 93%, right? They own 93% of the federal debt, which is just an indicator to me that the government and corporations are colluding to make us work at the M&M store in Times Square or do these crappy jobs that, like,
certainly
nobody wants to do.
Certainly. I mean, no shame on someone who does that work. You know what I mean? There's
it's not that the job is bad. It's like, it's drudgery, right? It's like, it's like the fact that people don't want to work these jobs that are drudgery. They want to make us do them, right? So how do you do that?
Right. Well, you know what I think is fascinating is you have this whole thing that's in the news right now about the Great Resignation, like all these folks that are leaving their jobs, you know, and what they leave out of that story is that those are folks who can leave their jobs. work.
Mhm.
They're talking about a privileged few, right? They're not talking about, potentially the folks that working at the M&M store and 5 other jobs to just make it work, to pay off debt that's illegitimate.
Exactly.
Like you were talking about other spaces. We have like medical debt doesn't exist in countries with nationalized healthcare, for example. Student debt is unheard of in areas where parts of the world where college is free. They talk about a debtor as somebody who made a bad decision, therefore that's the reason they're in debt. They never should have done that. Never should have gone to school to get a theater degree because look, you got what you asked for, kind of thing. Well, it never should have been that expensive in the first place. We shouldn't have to work 3 jobs, 5 jobs to keep a roof over our head or food on our table. Period.
Yeah, and also you go to Broadway, right? How do you think those people got their degrees? You cannot disrespect Broadway and then say theater majors don't deserve to go to school. How are they going to be educated? But what it sounds like is like, are you telling me that they're using debt to make us do things that we don't want to do?
Imagine that. Right? I mean, okay, so this is, we have at the Debt Collective this thing called the moral case for debt refusal, right? So I have my notes. I'm going to read them out. Any debt that is forced upon people to meet basic needs like healthcare, like housing, education, food, utilities is an unjust debt. It's unjust. There's totally no moral obligation to pay these debts. They would not exist in a just society.
No.
Our moral obligation to each other is to collectively refuse to cooperate with our own exploitation.
So what you're saying is that we should all stop paying our debt right now. Strike? Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask this. I guess you can keep talking. Sorry I interrupted you. But, we have some questions here. Okay. I'll get to that later. I wanted to just bring this up because, oh my gosh. Sorry, I'm doing the lives and I totally lost my train of thought. But okay, so the debt strike. So I think if we all stop paying this money that we owe, what do you think are going to be the consequences of that?
So this is the power we have as debtors. It isn't just about student debt. This is everything, really, right? I mean, the union that we have, the debtors union we have, is inspired by the labor unions. Individually, workers are at the mercy of their bosses. But when they come together, as we've seen over and over again recently in the news, coming together with collective power, they win better wages, they win better benefits, better working conditions, stuff like that. So we could do the same as debtors. As individual debtors, we're at the mercy of the creditors for housing, for education, for utilities, medical care, all of these things. People are really struggling with these burdens. But together we can turn this collective, these individual debts that we have into collective power, right? We can use that power to get our debts canceled, but we can also change how we finance our basic needs in the first place. And those are big picture things. Those are long things. But I think that if, and wouldn't it be an amazing day if everybody were to just stop paying their student loan debt back, period, just done, that might get their attention. I'm really hoping it would. Or we get this thing canceled first because Biden has the authority to do so.
Okay. I'm glad that you ended on that because this is my other question. Am I more likely to win the Squid Game than having my debt forgiven?
I think you're probably, honestly, I don't know because I haven't watched Squid Game. I feel like it's someone explained it to me as and correct me if I'm wrong, but someone explained it to me as, people are in this game to win all, what is it? If they win the game, they get their debt forgiven. Is that
if they win the game, they get a lot of money, but people die. So if you lose again, you die. So that's a consequence of, wow, this sounds really familiar. The consequence of you losing the game is dying. But if you do win, you do get money to be able to pay off your debt.
Okay. So that's what we're doing already, though. It feels like it's a little too close to home for me to watch.
Yeah, I was about to go, this is real life. I don't know why did we make this into a TV show. This is every day we all have to live like this.
And I think what you were saying, though, before about how these TV shows are kind of made to, it's supposed to be anti-capitalist, but it's not because it's lining the capitalist pockets just by nature of putting it out there on this platform, right?
Well, Gatway said that. She's a lot smarter than me. I did not say that.
We got y'all talking about it, and it's true. It's very true. You have to look at the medium, right? You have to look at the medium, how this stuff works. There are scary things about not paying your debt back, and the Debt Collective doesn't. If one is able to strike and has the, has either a cushion or community support or something else, by all means. But for some folks, it's very difficult because they can garnish your wages. You know,
That's
they
the
can.
other thing.
I mean, we have senior citizens that are getting their Social Security checks garnished because of either debt they had or their kids. You know, that they helped to pay their kids. Or they got in debt because of their kids' college educations. You know, senior citizens still being. You have folks that like started off with maybe $4,000 of school loan debt when they were, you know, they graduated in 1970 or something. And because of all the reasons that life throws at us, they haven't been able to pay it back. And now they owe $30,000 on an originally $7,000 because of the interest rate. Right.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's all just like really upsetting. We're like, oh my God, we're way over time. I'm going to try to get these two comments out and then I'm going to bring everybody up. I'm just going to skip my last question, which is like, if the government doesn't forgive our student loans, what should we do? Should we just send them all our statements like all our Sally Mae statements to the government? Or what should we
return to sender or send back our degrees?
Yeah, I was like, actually, I don't want it anymore. Can I return this?
I know.
It's like when you like a shirt that you didn't work out. Can you just like, I want to return it.
No, I mean, really the way to do this is to keep pushing our legislators, like keep on pushing, but also, you know, join the debtors union. Go to the debtcollective.org website, join that union. You know, union membership can be anything from $0 a month to like 500, whatever you are able. You know, there's no judgment, there's no minimum, no nothing. And get in touch with folks in your area, like get in touch with the New York City branch, and we can talk about ways in which we're going to activate and do actions to get city council's attention so we can pass a resolution here in New York City to encourage, to tell Biden to cancel student debt, as well as keep pushing our senators and pushing our legislators to make this happen. Because we know the squad in Congress wants this canceled. We know this. We have more allies in our legislative bodies than we ever had before, which is fantastic, but it doesn't mean we have to we can't give up. We just got to keep on pushing. You know?
Gotcha. No, I mean, that's like a solid way to think of it. We have to keep fighting. Somebody asked, how do you feel about the debt conversation being mostly centered around student debt versus including all types of predatory debt? And Winona, the Debt Collective encompasses all of that. It's not just, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what we are, like I said, we were inspired by the labor movement, but pretty much what we're doing is we believe that debtors organized in a union have real power over all our common circumstances. So we fight against creditors and the multitude of predatory forces that put us into debt, right? Whether it be medical, school, etc. We fight for the universal provision of public goods, healthcare, education, housing, retirement, so you don't have to go into debt to access this stuff. You know, we're not living beyond our means. Everybody says, oh, you're in debt because you live beyond your means. You made bad choices. No, we've been denied the means to live. I mean, as we know, and your audience surely knows, is that we live in a very systemic white supremacist racist culture, right? And it's always about just like disenfranchising folks, taking away resources. You look at the fact that like we even have to, like, public education used to be free in this country or very, very low cost. And it's because two groups of people wanted to go to school in the 1960s. Can you take a guess on who those two large groups of people were that wanted to start getting educated, and that's why they started making us pay?
Oh my God, could it be Black people? Oh dear God.
People of color and women. Put them together. We want to get educated? No, you got to pay for that.
Yeah, I mean,
we can go back to it. We can go back. We can. I mean, the thing is, you have like a situation where these are policy choices. The fact that our public education isn't funded isn't because the money doesn't exist. It's because our legislators choose not to put the money there. Instead, they put it toward the prisons. Instead, they put it toward real estate. They don't put it towards education.
Or military, because, you know, it's fun to start wars. One last comment, and then I'm going to bring everybody back up.
Sure.
So Gabby Jackson said, I've never seen this person before, but I want to live in a world where American government has been overthrown with Assata Shakur running shit. And honestly, yeah, bring Assata back, because I think that she will make this a better. But you know what? I don't think Assata wants it either. I think we get rid of everything. We have a stateless society. We have no hierarchy. I'm an anarchist, so those are my thoughts. But I want to bring up everybody back. And Winona, if you don't mind staying with us for a moment, this will take just a brief moment. So I have got Winona back. I have got Wagatwe back. And Wagatwe and Winona, the only last thing that we have to do now is talk about our high moment. So a high moment is a moment when you've been very high and you've come up with a brilliant idea, or an idea that you think is brilliant, that you feel comfortable sharing with everybody. I'll go first. My high moment is a little bit of what I mentioned later. I was really high one time, and it just like hit me that they've turned us into little monsters of little robots. Like they have programmed us to do these bad things that we don't even half the time. And then they tell us it's good things, like for you to abandon your friends to go get money, for you to abandon your relationships to go make money, for you to, it's like they've just said money matters over everything. And like sometimes you don't even do it intentionally, you just do it. And that's really scary for me. And I'm trying to like do a little work on it so that I can stop. But I don't know. I feel like I'm a robot trying to like override its programming every day. That's my high moment. Wagate, would you like? Actually, Winona, would you like to go? And then Wagate will have you close out the show.
Sure. Gosh, I think of my high moment. I think of the thing that's kind of like a recurring high moment, I guess. I mean, that's the point. I think of this poem that I read a while ago, and I'm just thinking, like, you're making me think of it now. So the poem is by this woman, Dana Faulds, and she says, "All you ever longed for is before you in this moment. If you dare, draw in a breath and whisper, yes."
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, I think about high moments. I mean, it just kind of it helps me to open up my perspective in my eyes and see a little bit fuller, clearer, I suppose.
No, yeah. When I'm high, I always have breakthroughs when I'm high. I became radicalized when I was high. I was reading How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, and when I was high, because that's the only way I can read these books, because otherwise I'll just start crying. And I was going through it, and the moment where he says the state was meant to siphon resources from the bottom to the top, I was like, that's the moment I became an anarchist. And it was like really fast and very traumatic also. But this is not about me right now. We're going to go over to Agatwe, who's going to tell us her high moment, and then we will let y'all go.
Okay, so this one's a little bit of a joke, but so I don't know if y'all saw that.
This is a comedy show after all.
I don't know if y'all saw that New York Times article about interracial dating.
No.
Okay, so there's this New York Times article about interracial dating, but it was like the most awkward, awful thing that I low-key feel like that was supposed to be like propaganda against interracial dating. Like it was written so bad that like I feel like it was supposed to be like, understand interracial dating better. No, I feel like low-key they were trying to discourage it. It was so bad.
Saying like about all the problems associated with
it? Was
like
so they interviewed a few people. So like there's like a Black woman, and she was like, she just seemed to have a lot of different hangups about dating white people, where she would like, oh, I don't like to wear tight clothes because I don't want them to see my curves. I make sure I wear Birkenstocks on the first date. And like, I hid my hair from my white boyfriend. I was so relieved he didn't hate it. And I'm just like, oh my God.
This wasn't a comedy. It wasn't a comedy article. That sounds like.
Can you hair? Wait, does he not like? What do you think we were going to do? Like,
she hid her hair from her boyfriend for 6 months.
Then why were you dating him?
Thank you.
I don't understand. That is so weird.
But then
it's less about interracial dating and more people who like feel like they should hide themselves from their partners and don't feel comfortable about being fully themselves. But they're like, hey, interracial dating. And I was like, oh, this is.
Leave it to the New York Times, right? Why can't you uplift stories of folks that like are madly in love instead of, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and not insecure about.
Yeah. My white husband parted my hair so that I could braid it. He greases my scalp. Like it's
goals. Right? I just can't imagine hiding it. Like, surprise, I'm Black. I have an afro. Like, what is she expect?
Like, what are you doing? And you wore also. I'm not judging, and Birkenstocks are very comfortable. I've worn them to many a dates. But feeling like you have to wear Birkenstocks the first date, I mean, they're cute, but like you don't have to. If your Birkenstocks are not your thing, you don't have to wear them.
Also, like, I just don't like the idea of me like having a different dating strategy depending on the race of the person I'm dating. Like that just sounds like so much work. Like, I'm just gonna be me, take me or leave me. I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's my philosophy these days. Take me or leave me. I'm tired. I'm like, I need to like write that somewhere. It's like when somebody like says something to me, I'm like, take me or leave me. I'm tired. I'm not changing. I'm exhausted.
Like-
No, we're not doing this anymore. Oh my goodness. All right, everybody. Now that so we've had our high moment, you have one more opportunity to answer questions, and also if you love the show and you want to support everybody who showed up today, please go ahead and like Venmo Marcela Onyango. And also if you have questions, this is your last moment to answer those questions. Winona, what I'll do is that I'll just take a cut of like whatever we get and just like donate it to the debt collective.
Send it to the debt collective. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. So somebody said, as a musical theater major, I'd love this. That was in response to what you're talking about, Winona, in terms of like people, you know, not paying their debts. And money is stupid. Boy, I love that. That is so nice. Money is stupid. Said that this was fun. Thank you all. Thank you so much, Money is Stupid, for joining. Thank you, A. Thank you, Gabby Jackson, for all your comments. You kept us really fun by talking to us. And that is the show. We went a little over today, but I feel like it was totally worth it because we chatted and we got to talk about things. So I'll see you soon. Hopefully you're not going to be traumatized by spending time with your family next week. Bye.